Tell me if you can relate to this. You're scrolling through social media and you see somebody who has this incredible body transformation, or they go from being broke to becoming rich, or they started some cool business idea that you've been thinking about starting. And seeing that motivates you to get off of your butt and to start getting things into gear in your life. But these people who we're seeing do these incredible things on social media are kind of like the David Goggins of whatever transformation they've experienced. And it doesn't mean that they are extreme. It means that the story of their transformation that we're seeing looks like it's extreme, and probably more extreme than it actually was. Because what they don't usually reveal is the full context of their transformation. For instance, whenever you see body transformations, they rarely show the food. All they show is them on a treadmill and then them doing, barbell curls and then them running or something like that. But to transform your body from going from being overweight to becoming fit requires a complete overhaul over your diet. And that's something that people rarely ever show. But literally, to get abs after being overweight, you can't do it without changing your diet significantly and making thousands upon thousands of dietary choices, which is why they say you can't out-train a bad diet. But people don't show that. With financial come-ups, people never focus on the budgeting and the getting out of debt and the savings where possible and whatever unhealthy lifestyle choices that they made in order to prioritize becoming as successful as they were within a short amount of time. So I'm not negating that they didn't become successful. I'm just saying they don't show you the full backstory of, again, the thousands upon thousands of choices that they had to make that were not very interesting, exciting, or sexy choices that led to that financial transformation. Or when we see someone start a really cool business, we think, oh, they found a space, they just put an open sign and they got some inventory and now people are coming in and buying the stuff up like hotcakes. They're not showing you the staffing challenges. They're not showing you the business plans. They're not showing you all the different things they had to do to raise capital or to borrow money from friends and family or how to deal with contractors, etc. There's a lot of boring stuff. There's a lot of the finer print that people have to go through in order to do the things that they're doing. Again, it's possible. It's very possible. But when we get inspired and motivated to make changes based on what we see on social media, we oftentimes come away with this idea that it's quick and that it's easier than it actually is. And this sets us up to have delusional expectations where we start down that road and we hit a wall pretty quickly, meaning in the first few months, because we realize, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought. And because we haven't really prepared ourselves mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually for the full length of this journey, we may come to the erroneous conclusion that it's just not meant to be. And nothing could be further from the truth. So then we scroll again and we see some messaging around, you just need to burn the boats. You just need to go all in. Don't give yourself an option to retreat. And look, I'm all for the freedom of choicelessness, but I'm also for having a good plan. If you're Vikings going to conquer some territory and you're going to burn the boats once you land so that you have to conquer it, at least make sure you have some good weapons and some tools and some food, enough to kind of help you stave off the opposition long enough to give yourself a fighting chance. And so that's what this episode is really about, is how to give yourself the best possible chance to see the transformation that you ultimately want through to the end. And it's just like with renovating a property or starting a business, it's going to take twice as long. It's going to cost you 3-4 times as much. And if you just have that understanding in your mind, then you're going to set yourself up for ultimate success. And I just want to share with you some tactics from what I've seen helping to shepherd people through transformation process for literally over 20 years that helps people to stay the course long after the motivation and the inspiration dries up, which will inevitably happen. So here are 3 unconventional but incredibly effective ways to build a consistent habit that will ultimately lead to the transformation that you seek. I'm going to start off with the most extreme one, and then you can just work your way from there. But what I found is that when you have something at stake, then that will encourage you to make more of a plan than you would make otherwise if you didn't have anything at stake. And when I say at stake, I mean you have something that you're going to lose. So for instance, I've told this story before on this channel, but it's a good story to remind us of what that can look like in real life. When I was writing my very first book, which is called The Inner Gym, it took me 3.5 years to complete that project. And for the first 3 years, I was stopping and starting and waiting for inspiration and motivation and going back and reading what I wrote and realizing it was trash and starting again. And I just kept going through this loop, and then the imposter syndrome set in. And then I start feeling like, what am I doing? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe it's not meant to be. I just can't get the words to come out right. I keep getting writer's block. I keep going away from it for a few weeks and coming back to it for a couple of days and then going away from it again for a couple of weeks. And all of this felt completely justified in my mind because I was busy. I wasn't getting paid to write this book. This was a self-published project. So I was writing the book in my spare time. And like most people, we all feel like we're busy, right? If you talk to anybody on the street and say, hey, man, I'm going to go dig some dishes for the next 2 weeks. Would you like to join me? Everybody's going to say, I'm too busy. I got too much going on. But then when you look at their actual life, people are sitting around scrolling for hours on end. People are sitting around watching television for hours on end. People are, just kind of BSing away their time. I'm not saying everybody's doing this, but a lot of the times when we talk about we're busy, we're not actually busy doing things that are moving our life forward. And so I was running that same script in my mind. I'm so busy. I don't have time to keep investing into this silly book project that doesn't look like it's going anywhere. And eventually I got to the point where I was just so sick and tired of talking about this book and thinking about this book and going back to the book and stopping the book that I finally said, you know what? This book is not getting enough of my full attention. And one way to do that is I need to put something on the line. I need to potentially lose money. So the idea of gaining money or notoriety from writing the book was not motivating enough for me to actually get it done. So then I said, well, I need to lose something. And I sat down and I wrote out a check for $4,000 and I wrote it to a good friend of mine who doesn't need the money. And then I sat down and wrote out a 2-page contract with the stipulations. The stipulations were as follows. I agree to finish my manuscript by such and such date, which happened to be 3 months from the date I was writing the contract. And this manuscript will be ready to upload to Amazon's self-publishing portal and be available for sale by such and such date. And if I do not have the manuscript ready to upload by that date, then you are obligated to take this $4,000 and spend it on whatever you would like to spend it on that has nothing to do with me. You can't use it to buy me something or as a favor to me or to help somebody out that benefits me. You have to use it for yourself. And I put that in there because I didn't want there to be any sort of wiggle room in what I was going to potentially lose. I needed to completely feel like I was losing it. And then I also said, if I get sick in this time and I don't finish it, that's not an excuse. I said, if I have to go out of town for a job or something like this, that's also not an excuse. I said, there's no excuses because I know me. I know the important sounding excuses that I'm likely to come up with to try to wiggle my little way out of that agreement. And so I went through 4 or 5 different scenarios where I could potentially wiggle my way out. And I said that, you can't accept any of those as excuses. In fact, there's no excuses. Either it's done and you don't cash the check, or it's not done and you have to cash the check. You cannot not cash the check. And so once I sent that to my friend, I hand delivered it to him. And once I did that, something energetically just kind of switched inside of me. All of a sudden, I had all the time in the world to work on this book because I knew that I had something real on the line. And that amount of money, $4,000, was not an amount of money that I could afford to lose at that time. And so that's why I chose $4,000 and not $1,000 or $500 or $200. $200, $500, okay, if I lose it, it's not the end of the world. $4,000 for me at that time was unacceptable to lose that kind of money. So I got busy writing and finishing, and I had a whole other quality of attention that was already there, dormant. I just never tapped into it because I never put anything on the line. I didn't have anything at stake. I had no one holding me accountable. And that's why I say the worst kind of accountability is always going to be self-accountability, because you're constantly grappling with your important sounding excuses. The kids need this. I'm sick. I'm tired. I have a headache. I haven't eaten right. All the different excuses that we all have that no one is going to debate you on because they sound so important are ultimately going to keep you from doing the things that you say you want to do unless you have something at stake. I'm not saying you have to send somebody a check for X amount of dollars, but it certainly works. In my experience, it is the most effective way to keep yourself on track. If you have somebody who's holding you accountable in that way. And my friend didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to say anything. I don't even think he remembered it. Once I gave him the check and everything, I told him I was going to check back in with him within 3 months. But of course, I ended up finishing that manuscript about a week early because I didn't want to chance it. So in other words, I stopped treating it like an amateur and I started treating it like a professional, like I was actually being paid $1 million to finish this thing. And if I didn't finish it in the time that it was due, then I wasn't going to get the $1 million. And when you have that kind of mindset, you are going to finish the thing. You're going to deal with all the hard stuff. And I had to go through several editors and I had friends look at it and going back and forth. And I learned about substantive editing versus grammatical editing and all these things that I would not have done had I not had something at stake. So that is probably the most effective way, in my experience, to get yourself to the finish line. Have something that you are going to lose, something real, something that gets your full attention, and have someone to hold you accountable to that thing. You can't do it for yourself. You need to get someone else, get the money out of your pocket into an escrow somewhere where you can't touch it unless you finish the thing that you said you were going to do. And there is a 100% chance that you are going to finish. Unless something really strange happens, an act of God or something, there's pretty much a 100% chance that you're going to follow through on what you said you were going to do. If you haven't followed through, all that means is that you have not put enough at stake. You don't have enough accountability. That's all it means. It doesn't mean you're uniquely busier than anyone else. It doesn't mean that you are incapable of doing the thing and you don't have enough time or creativity or whatever. It just means you don't have enough at stake. That's all it means. And you will only realize that once you have something at stake, and that allows you to follow through. You're going to look back and go, oh, that's why I wasn't following through. Okay. So have something on the line. Another useful way to see the transformation through to the end is to take the goal that you have and to break it up into baby steps. Now, what do I mean by that? So I have a goal of walking, 10,000 plus steps a day. I ended up moving to Mexico City, which is very much a walking culture. So it's really not difficult to get those 10,000 plus steps. But there's also a rainy season here in Mexico, which can last 5 to 6 months. So walking is not that enjoyable. It's not that the rain is bad. It's that the drainage is not the best here in Mexico City. So there's like puddles of water everywhere. And so you are constantly having to dodge puddles of water. So what I do is I go to the gym. Now, there happens to be a gym 30 seconds from my house. Is it the nicest gym in the world? No. Do they have the best treadmills? Absolutely not. There's no track. There's no fancy treadmills, but it's 30 seconds from my house. So I ended up joining that gym because it's so convenient. It's close in proximity. And so I can just go there whenever I feel like walking, or if I have some phone calls to make, I'll go to the gym and I'll get on the treadmill and I'll make my phone calls from the treadmill. And that gives me an opportunity to get some steps in addition to doing whatever work I have to do for my job or just, whatever hobbies I happen to be working on. Sometimes on Saturdays when college football is on, I'll go walk on the treadmill while the game is playing and I'll just watch it from my phone. Instead of sitting on the couch watching the game, at least I could be getting some steps. Now you're probably thinking, Light, there are all kinds of walking treadmill things you can get on Amazon. And yeah, fine. Maybe I'll get one of those one day. But in the meantime, there's no excuses for me not to be getting the steps that I want to get. And so that is a way to break your commitment up into smaller steps and then to sort of organize your life around it so that it becomes easier. I was just visiting my brother in the States. He lives in Alabama. And whenever I go to the States, it's so hard to walk there. Now, obviously you can walk anywhere, but it's just not that enjoyable. The neighborhood he lives in, there's really no walking. There's no street lights. It's dark. It's a little bit spooky. It's like, I'm not going to be walking in the evening in this place. And so I said, hey, can I go to your gym? He goes, sure. Yeah, you can go to my gym. His gym was like a 30-minute drive away, which is probably why he rarely goes to the gym. So if you say you want to do something, put yourself in the best possible situation to do the thing with the least amount of effort. Another way to think about baby steps is you start with 500 steps a day in addition to whatever you've been doing, and then you add on another, 10 steps. And you keep adding 10 steps a day until you make your way up to however many steps you want to do, 8,000 steps, 9,000, 10,000 plus steps. You may be thinking, but I want to get to 10,000 soon because that's what everybody on social media says. Again, they're not showing you the context. When I talk about walking, I'm not talking about how my gym is 30 seconds away. I'm not talking about how I live in the walking culture. I may just show a screenshot from my step counting app. Oh, look, Light's getting 12,000, 14,000 steps a day. Oh my God. I'm in a completely different environment. I didn't start off getting that many steps. I probably started off getting 2,000 or 3,000 steps and then working my way up from there. In fact, in my online community, the Happiness Insiders, we have a 30-day walking challenge where we have people just look at their step tracker that's already on your smartphone. It'll tell you how many steps you've been averaging. For most people who have more or less sedentary lifestyles, you're looking at maybe 1,000 to 2,000 steps a day. And then with intention, you can start to get more steps gradually. So we have people just gradually at 500 steps a day. 500 steps is really 5 minutes of walking. So if you go outside and you walk straight for 5 minutes, you have 500 extra steps. If you walk for 10 minutes, you have 1,000 steps. If you walk for 20 minutes, now you have 2,000 steps, which is about a mile of walking. So in that sense, walking for 10,000 steps, it's going to take you about an hour, 20 minutes. But like I said, you usually have about 2,000 steps just with normal walking throughout the day. So really, it's just about an hour of additional walking throughout your day. And then if you just start to look at, okay, I have one errand that I need to run. I need to go to my neighbor's house, or I need to go to the store, or I need to walk to, somewhere else. And it's usually a 2-minute drive. Well, a 2-minute drive is probably about a 10-minute walk. So if you walk there and back, that's 2,000 steps right there. And you can listen to a podcast, you can call a friend, you can listen to some music, you can do whatever you want to make the time feel as enjoyable as possible. But if you start to think more, just, out of the box, like you don't have to drive your errands. You can walk some of them. That will help you get some steps. If you park a little further away from the entrance to whatever box retailer you happen to be going to, just park in the back of the parking lot. If it's 9 o'clock at night and it's in a shady area, obviously you want to try to find a parking spot close to the front. But if it's in the middle of the day and it's in a relatively safe area, park in the back. Or if you're going to a retailer and then there's another retailer that's like a 5-minute walk away, instead of getting in your car and driving to the other retailer, just walk to the other retailer. And that way, without even trying, you can start to get more steps. So those are just, again, real world ways to break the habit up into smaller steps where you rarely feel like you're having to go out of your way to do this thing. It just becomes a part of the thing that you do. And you can apply that to pretty much any other habit that you would like to incorporate into your life. And then third, I would say going public also helps. So going public requires you to think about your goal, whether it's becoming financially free or body transformation or whatever the goal is, and writing it down, thinking about a plan, and then announcing it to your followers on social media or to whoever you think can hold you accountable. And again, it's not like people are going to be stopping their lives to hold you accountable, but they may ask you, how's it going? I would also say to schedule check-ins. So it's not enough to just go public one time. You want to schedule check-ins. You want to say, okay, I'm going to report every Monday how the progress is going. And so you can come back and join me on Mondays to hear the updates. And that way you put yourself on a regularly scheduled way of measuring whatever it is that you want to improve. Because of course, what you measure, you can improve. If you're not measuring it, you don't know if it's improving or not. I did a calorie deficit recently, and initially I was tracking my macros through ChatGPT and all that, and it seemed to be working pretty well. I didn't see major changes in my body in the first few weeks, but then I got DEXA scan, and it tells you how much lean muscle mass you have, how much body fat you have, and a bunch of other metrics. And I was like, okay, this is cool. It's about where I thought I was. But then I went back 30 days later of being really consistent with the macro tracking. And I got another scan, and I was surprised to see how well it was working. And that one reference point actually motivated me to double down on all of the different habits that I was employing, which again, doing something like that takes hundreds, if not thousands, of choices that you're making on a regular basis to stay the course. All right. So we're going to keep it simple with just those three things. There are more, but I think if you do one of those three things, pay somebody some money, break the thing down into baby steps, announce the thing publicly, I think that you are going to give yourself significantly greater chances to follow through to the end of whatever it is that your commitment happens to be. And if you want someone to hold you accountable, I have a finish line coaching program where you bring one goal or one dream, and within 12 weeks, we get you to the finish line by giving you the different mindset tips and the coaching and the accountability and the group support that most people, again, are severely lacking when it comes to the changes you want to seek. This is not for people who like to wait for January 1st to start making changes. This is not for people who think they may sometimes, probably, hopefully want to change. This is for people who are so tired of their own BS and going back and forth and stopping and starting. And you realize that doing it your way has not been working, and trying to hold yourself accountable does not work. And if you've reached that point where you've done enough research in the self-accountability approach, and you finally now recognize, okay, I need someone who is willing to hold me to my word and to help me break these things down into baby steps and to help me structure a real world plan that can get me across that finish line within 12 weeks. I don't care if it's during the holidays, my birthday, weekend. I am committed to seeing this thing through to the end. If that's you, this is a program for you. If you click on the QR code, you will get the information, and looking forward to helping you get across that finish line. And in the meantime, I've got other resources. The Year You Transform is my book about the transformation process, breaking it down, mindsets, challenges that you can use to help create the habit of baby steps. Also, I have a community called the Happiness Insiders, which is full of thousands of people who are all working towards their own personal growth goals and health goals and things like that. So there are a lot of resources. There's a lot of structure. All of my stuff tends to be meditation centric as well, because I think meditation is a good anchoring practice to help you stay clear about your goals and where you're going. And if you enjoyed this episode, you want to definitely check out my episode on the 3 decisions that will change your life. And then I got another episode on the 7 harsh realities of committing to your inner work. Thank you guys again for your support and for watching these videos. And let me know if you have any topics that you would like for me to offer the spiritual perspective on. And otherwise, I will see you for the next episode.